Hey everyone, this is GKCS. Today we have a very special guest. That's Kunal from Code for Cause. Kunal is a software engineer, undergraduate at the moment, but is a very well-known open source contributor. And in fact, the kind of contributions that Kunal has made is very interesting. Some of them we'll be talking about today. So Kunal, would you like to say something about yourself, or more importantly, something about me?
Yeah, definitely. I've been watching Gaurav since I was in my freshman year, and like system design is also a really important topic when contributing to big open source projects. And Gaurav's resources have helped me quite a lot. So, really appreciate the great work you're doing for the community, and thanks a lot for having me. Really looking forward to interacting with the
Thank you.
community you have on the channel. But yeah, enough about you.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks
just
for
kidding.
reading that prepared script. We had this as the part of the deal. If you want to come on my channel, you have to first praise me, and then we get to the main.
That is that is understandable. That is totally fine. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. My name is Kunal. I am an open source enthusiast, and I've been contributing to open source since I was in my freshman year. A few open source contributions I have made have been in organizations like Red Hat, Google Open Source Programs, which we'll talk about more later on, Cloud Native Computing Foundation. Facebook open source. So if you're using Jest, which is a JavaScript testing framework, there's a new feature in that for reporting individual test cases. Me and my friend added that during the fellowship. So I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, in my free time, I like to play video games and travel. Not so much because of the COVID situation right now, but I used to travel quite a lot beforehand. And I also run a community, Code for Cause, which is the aim of which is to spread open source culture among students all over the world. So yeah, really excited to be here.
Wow, that's a lot that you have been doing in college itself. This is excellent. And do you think there's a lot of people who are into open source in college, or at least do you think like there's a lot of interest that people have towards the concept?
Yeah, most definitely. Not just in college, like high school as well. So when I was a mentor in Google Coding, which was a program for it was an open source program by Google for high school students, so under the age of 17, I believe. And over there, people were like 14, 15-year old, 13-year-old students working on like Kubernetes and containers and all these things, adding new features and all these things in applications. So I have seen like people even starting in open source from a really early age. Speaking of people in colleges, so yeah, definitely open source culture has grown quite a bit, and for good reasons, because it's a really good alternative for you to get nice experiences and make a better resume, and which we'll talk about later on in detail, and just gain some experience, make your connections, build your profile, and just basically have something to showcase when you go look for an internship or a job in which experience is required. Sometimes referrals and all these things are required, which is really important if you're from a tier 3 college. So open source can help you in that as well. And I believe for good reasons, open source is getting really popular among students, especially regarding the programs as well. So like Google Summer of Code is really popular in India. Outreachy MLH fellowship is also recently really popular. We received like 20,000 applications this year. So I'm like also volunteering or working over there as a MLH coach. So we reviewed so many applications, and the amount of enthusiasm we saw from students was quite a lot. So yeah, I mean, definitely open source has been really people have been really interested in open source in the community, in student communities. Yeah.
Wow, awesome. Yeah, no, when I was in college, this is way back during the prehistoric years, I actually found a lot of people who were interested in open source, but unfortunately, A, we did not know what it meant properly, at least, and B,
Hmm.
we didn't know how to go about and contribute. So
Yeah.
one of the motivators for us, at least, was that if we can't do an internship in our first year or our second year, how about we go over here and then try what we are good at, or
Hmm.
try to work on something that might help other people. The other motivator for us was we need to get skills, which is the same with an internship, right? Like
Hmm.
you want to build your resume plus gain skills, and open source seemed to be the right way to go forward. But Instead, I personally I went for college projects. Like I got together with a professor and then we built a project. But do you think open source is a nice alternative for that? After, by the
I
way, guys,
believe,
after
yeah,
this, we'll just start the stream in a minute. It's already started, but we are basically we are just talking random things about
yeah,
open source. Soon we'll be
we
heading
are
main.
warming up.
Yeah,
Yeah, so regarding
absolutely.
the point you mentioned, I believe like so why even should we do open source, right? So I believe whatever you're learning, you should apply that. So you should not just keep on learning. Let's say you're learning new frameworks, new libraries, new languages, and all these things, but you're not really doing anything with it. So I believe that is not beneficial in the long term. For example, for example, I did mobile development. I then did not continue with it. I just learned about it and did not make any projects, for example, did not contribute to open source in mobile development. So in the end, after a few months and a few years, I lost interest in that and lost touch with mobile development, and I was more interested in the projects I was now in technologies I was actively contributing in. So once you start learning something, there's this thing called tutorial help. So people are like, I'm learning so many things for the past few months, I have watched all the tutorials, but I'm still not accomplishing anything. Well, the reason you're not accomplishing anything is because you're not applying whatever you're learning. So to answer your question, that can be done in many ways. Make projects, for example, the thing you mentioned, write blogs, teach someone, conduct a workshop, webinar, start a YouTube channel, or contribute to open source. So open source is a part of it. It's not definitely like, it's not like mandatory. It's not like you have to do open source or anything like that. If you're involved in nice research projects, for example, or you're doing some nice projects and you share those projects with others, that is also some sort of a community work, and that is also some sort of like a work in which you're actually applying whatever you're learning. That is the end goal. Like whatever you're learning, make sure you apply it somewhere. Otherwise, uh, you might not be feeling that good after a few months when you're not getting anything out of it.
Okay, okay. So I think, guys, most of the viewers, I'm seeing the number of viewers right now is around 250. And let's start with the main questions. Kunal is going to be our oracle today. Whatever we ask, he answers. And if he does not answer, then well, it's perfectly fine. By the way, Kunal, I think which college are you from? You're from a college in Delhi, I think.
Yeah, I am from IP University's College, Maharaja Agrasen Institute of Technology. It's in
Yeah.
Rohini, New Delhi. Yeah.
All right. So one of the interesting things uh, about India is that placements in college is usually based on entrance tests, or I should say aptitude tests. It's not so much on reference when
Hmm.
you're going fresh through college. So
Hmm.
a lot of colleges actually go to sorry I'm sorry a lot of companies actually go to colleges and then take these aptitude tests, and then if you clear it, sometimes these aptitude tests can involve coding also. Like that's the
Hmm.
reason
Hmm,
why
hmm.
corporate programming has really boomed here. But
Yep.
um, what happens is it leaves a large section of students who may or may not be fanatically interested in problem solving. They might be interested in software development, they might be
Hmm.
interested in large scale systems. So the alternative that they have is, usually we used to say, why don't you build a project in college? The other thing that you can do, according to me, is contribute to an open source project.
Hmm.
And so we can discuss this in the next as we talk. Yeah. But the first question that I want to get out of the way is, Kunal, what is open source?
Yeah, sure. So open source projects are basically, I mean, we have been using this even before, we were like developers and stuff. So ever since, I was a kid, we were using like, VLC, for example. So VLC is an open source project. So open source project is basically, there are like a few criterias. So it can be, free to use. It may not be free to use. So it totally, the most important term over here is licenses. So it totally depends on what the license is. But the whole idea over here is that open as in, free to like access, modify, and it's an inclusive community. So open as in for, anyone from everywhere, and also open as in for reusing. So for example, you take an example of, for example, Android. So Android is an open source operating system. So many other companies are also using it. Linux is open source. It's an open source kernel, and it's running so many servers. And Chromium, for example, it's also open sourced. So there are like open source projects are everywhere, and there are so many. Some people definitely prefer. Like, I have a friend of mine. He does not use any proprietary software. He uses open source software always for everything. So there's like GIMP for like your Photoshop and stuff. So
Oh yes. Yeah.
that is the whole idea behind open source. And yeah, I mean, again, like depending on the licenses, it does not mean that people cannot earn from open source. Red Hat has its projects like open source projects which they work on, but still they have like billions of dollars of evaluations every year. So these people use the SaaS like software as a service model to make their revenue. But yeah, definitely in terms of like how much control you have over the particular project, you know that is what makes it special. And always, like I mentioned, it's an inclusive community, so definitely contributions are welcomed. If you require a feature, you can just request for it, and we can like, hey, I feel like this might be a cool feature to add, so you can request that and people can work on it. Even you can work on it. So that is the whole idea behind open source versus proprietary softwares.
Okay, so in general, open source, if I understood it correctly, it is a software that is existing somewhere out there, which is free to download. People can make changes to it, but not really, because there's a bunch of people who are the guardians of that software who say that yes, this change is allowed, yes, this change is not allowed. All the features in open source is then done through done through tickets. People actually request
Yeah,
features,
issues. Yeah.
issues. Yes, so there's possibly bugs which need to be fixed. So technically random people can come along and say that I need to fix this bug. Once I fix this bug, anybody else can download this code, and for them that bug is fixed. So
Yeah.
it's like a community contribution.
Definitely, yeah. Most important part in open source is the community. Without the community, the community is the most special part in open source. And it's not like if you request a feature, definitely they will leave everything they're doing and, like Kunal requested this feature, like leave everything, just do this right now. No,
No,
the thing
absolutely
is like they are also not working on it full time. For people who
right.
contribute to open source, most probably, so they are doing it on their in the free time, and some people get paid for that as well regarding open source organizations, because in Red Hat or other organizations, but most of them are like doing it in their free time just because they love helping the community, and just because they are using that particular project, so why not contribute to it. And it's all, yeah.
No, that's super interesting. In fact, to be honest with you, people who are really passionate about something, for example, computer programming or YouTubing, what's going to end up happening is these kind of guys, when they're really passionate about software, you put them in one place, they'll do it for free. They'll actually pay their time to do the same thing. So it's very interesting. In like, I've seen computer programmers who do computer programming not for the money; they just do it because they love to solve problems. And if
Definitely,
open
yeah.
source software gives people the chance to work on software engineering problems, which are complex, maybe your organization does not have those kind of problems. Maybe right now nobody is ready to invest that kind of time to train you, to tell you how these things are built. This seems like a good alternative.
Yep. Definitely,
Okay.
yeah.
So, Kunal, do you know any success stories of open source? We know some companies are doing very well. So, according to me, I think what happens with these companies, like you said, is either they offer a SaaS model, where software as a service, or what they do is they take the same open source software, customize it according to a company, and send their experts to that company. It's
Yeah,
like a
that
consultancy
happens.
sort of thing.
That
So,
happens, yeah.
yeah. So the revenue models for companies are very clear. What possible benefit will come? I mean, do you? So we talked about a lot of the benefits. In fact, do you have any success stories which clearly say that wow, this person worked on open source and it really helped them?
Yeah, there was this person. He was contributing to. I know many people who contribute to open source projects, and then they get jobs at like Google, Facebook, and all these organizations, because these organizations. Let's take a name of the few big ones, right? Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and so many other organizations. So these are like the top three ones that are like really popular among students. They have their own open source projects which are being used by millions and millions of people. So Facebook has like, React, React Native, Jest, so on and so forth. Microsoft also has like TypeScript. I mean, so many people are using TypeScript, and there's like .NET and so many other Azure SDKs, so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, regarding that, if you do contribute to these projects, first of all, the very first thing is it looks really nice on your resume. That is totally fine. Like if you contributed to such a nice project and put that on your resume, nothing is wrong with that. It's totally cool. The second thing is you get to develop new skills, and you have something to showcase on your particular resume, like, okay, this is what I did, this is the technical feature I added, this is how many people it impacted. So if you know how to write good resume, how to make a good resume, in your resume you should show an impact, because your resume goes through like the application tracking system, and in there you should like mention that I worked on this, this is what I achieved, this is what it led to. So add analytics and stuff in your resume. So that was a quick resume tip for you all. So over there you can mention that I contributed this project, this feature is used by so many people, this is what this feature led to, so on and so forth, and this is such a nice project. The other thing is like the maintainers and everyone you are going to be interacting with, so they themselves work with these big organizations, like I mentioned, like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Red Hat, so many other organizations.
Yeah, that's true.
So they work on these, they are employees of these organizations. You can definitely, reach out to them like, hey, I see there's an opening or something, or do you know if there is any opening? They know about your work already. Everything is done for you. Like half of the work is done. They know that you can write code. They know that you can work in a team. You have literally worked with them on open source projects. And that is from my personal experience, that you can definitely get internship opportunities and job opportunities, via open source, without even competitive coding. But I'm not saying don't do competitive coding. Competitive coding and problem solving, DSA is important. So in no way I'm saying skip that, because better be safe than sorry, because many companies do require that. So don't do focus on your problem solving skills as well. That is important. But regarding open source, yeah, there might be, like, for example, I got an internship at Red Hat recently, hacker rank as well. I was not asked a single DSA question. Everything was focused on my previous open source contributions. That is it. And I got offers from both the companies, off campus, tier 3, and in Red Hat I did not even apply. I was reached out. So that is the idea. And most of the companies, like, if you contribute to open source, regarding some more success stories, you can attend the biggest conferences in the world when you contribute to open source. So if you contribute to big projects, there are so many awesome events, thousands and thousands of developers attend every year. Over there, the networking is next level. And over there also you can reach out to people regarding internships and opportunities. Basically, if you have something to showcase that, hey, I work on these projects, this is all the code I have done, because everything is facts, because everything is visible on your GitHub profile. So there's no beating around the bush. They know what is happening, that this person is actively contributing, they have worked in our organization, so they can most definitely refer you. And if you go to events like open source summits, KubeCon, which is one of the largest conferences in the world, so many other events, that's monitoring conferences, TensorFlow conferences, so many conferences you can go to. Over there you can just network with people and sort of like be like, okay, I'm looking for internships or something, and that can really help you if you're contributing to open source. According to my experience, I've gotten a lot of opportunities like this. There are also open source programs which we'll talk about later on.
That's awesome. So one of the things which is very clear is that there are success stories. You, in fact, are a very clear success story. The important thing that I'm seeing right now is that there is a small shift. It's not a very large shift, but there is a shift definitely towards more real life or coding based problems being given to students, even as freshers and as experienced people. I think one of the reasons that has happened is because there's been a certain number of false positives that we have gotten through computer programming. As an interviewer, this was my experience, that if a person is really good at computer programming, that's great. But when you make it too objective, point number one is that the communication skills might be okay or not so okay. Open source contributions to some extent hit on that a little more than computer programming, because you're not working in a silo. You have to actually work with the community. And part two is you actually do things which is a lot more relevant to your job in the real world. So, but that doesn't mean that, like Kunal said, that doesn't mean that computer programming will go away, because first of all, computer programming, I should not even mention it in the interview space. It's a sport. Okay, problem solving will go away. No, it will not go away because it tests your aptitude, and that's a separate competency being measured. This open source is your experience being measured, and it's like having really high points in Stack Overflow. You probably know about a lot of subjects, and like when you're actually contributing, then you know how to code them also. Okay, okay. So awesome. So I have another question for you, Kunal. I have like a series of never-ending questions. But how do we start? How do we go about? So if I'm a fresh college student, a college grad, or if I'm an undergraduate, where do I start?
Yeah, sure. So like before that, I'm talking from, let's say, my point of view. So I never skipped DSLGO problem solving or anything like this, because I know that this is important. I know that in big companies like, Google, Facebook, and all these other companies, that is the thing that is asked. So open source for me, like Gaurav also mentioned, there are many companies that can give you opportunities, even internship and full-time opportunities, just via your GitHub profile. Okay, many of the time, if you are a really active open source contributor, you will get so many offers. Trust me, like you would not even have to apply. That is the truth. That does not mean you should not apply, but I'm just saying the amount of recognition you get if you're contributing to an open source project. And the second thing is like problem solving is important. And for people who are, let's say, not contributing to open source, that's fine. If you're like really into problem solving, really into competitive coding, I know that many people have made it quite big via just competitive coding as well. That is also fine, because once you clear the interviews and land an offer via competitive coding, there's like a training period in the particular, before you actually start your work. I believe there's like a training period where they share some resources with you and stuff. But like Gaurav mentioned, it's more on the experience space when we talk about open source. And open source, like I mentioned, can help you in building your resume. It can be a really good way if you're from a tier 2, tier 3 college and companies don't come on your campus. So it's a really good way to actually land those internship opportunities. And problem solving, on the other hand, will actually help you clear those opportunities. So if that makes sense. And also the second part is, in many cases you will also get opportunities directly via open source. Okay, so that's also an option. So it's like a whole bunch of options you have available. But regarding how can we start, so yeah, the most important thing, like why should we even care? So regarding open source projects, like you get the quality and reliability, security and stability, adaptability and customization. You get the freedom and flexibility with the project. And the most important one that I already mentioned is cooperation and the community. So how to start? This basically, like, first of all, you need a project. So project is something that we need. And before the project, you need an organization. So open source organizations, like I mentioned, TensorFlow is an open source organization for machine learning. You have for blockchain as well. You have for web development as well. You have for machine learning, and you have for mobile development, DevOps, cloud, containers. So many organizations are there. Testing, monitoring, so many tools are there available. So the idea lies over here that in which thing you are interested in. So the prerequisites might be, first things very important. You should know about Git and GitHub, because that is what you're going to be using to collaborate. So Git and GitHub is important. There are no prerequisites for Git and GitHub, so you can even start right now after this stream if you want, or tomorrow. It's totally up to you. Git and GitHub has no prerequisites. Second thing is, you should know a programming language. And the third thing is basic to medium knowledge of your tech stack. This is important. Basic to medium is important because you don't have to be a pro coder to contribute to open source. Does not matter how big the project is. Sometimes you don't even have to be a coder. So open source is for everyone, even for non-coders. There are so many other contributions that people can make who are not coders. Like you can improve with the documentation, the community part, the community management part, and the graphics part, so on and so forth. There's plenty of work people can do who are not coders. And yeah, I can speak more about that as well. But speaking from a coding point of view, you have to find an organization first. And before finding an organization, you need to look into what are your interests. So there are two approaches to this. You can either learn the skills first and then find the organizations that use those skills. This is what I did. I was learning Java, and then I wanted to get some real world experience. So I was like, okay, let's try open source. And then I started looking for organizations that use Java. This is what I did. there's one more approach. You can first choose an organization that you really want to contribute to, and then learn the skills that are being used in that organization. So sort of like a top down and bottom up approach. But these two approaches coexist together. Why? Because you should not be like, I only know Java, what all projects I can contribute to. Oh, this is using Java, but it's also using Kubernetes, Docker, Kafka, Spring Boot. I can't do this. So no, that is not the right mindset. Even if you know 30 to 40% of the things, you can contribute. Okay. The thing I would suggest over here is learn on the go, and the community is there to help you wherever you get stuck. We'll talk more about that later. But uh, this was the first point I wanted to make, like how to finding an organization and regarding your skills and interests. Don't need to be an expert, and then just going through the projects and everything and seeing which project you want to contribute to. So that is the first step, just finding the organization and finding the project.
So Kunal, if I am in my second year and I only know one programming language, let's say C++ or Java, I first go and try to find I try to find an organization which has built a product or a project. For example, Elasticsearch. I think that is
Yep.
written in Java.
Java.
Java. Then you could have TensorFlow. I think is that C++?
Yeah, I'm not sure
Just a
about
mixture, I think.
that,
Yeah.
but yeah, the C++ organizations can be like, let me think. I have not contributed to C++ orgs, but
Yeah,
yeah,
there might
Envoy
be a
proxy,
few on the
Envoy,
financial thing domain.
and Envoy proxy is there
And
by CNCF. The Linux kernel is there. It's written in
oh
C.
yeah,
There are many other organizations. I made an entire a video on that on my channel. So I made like 5 videos. It's like open source organizations in Java, C++, JavaScript, Android, and there was one more. I forgot. Anyway, you get the idea. You can
yeah,
check out
guys, you
on
can
my
go in
channel.
the description. There's Kunal's playlist over there, which actually details open source contributions really well. But
Yep.
to summarize Kunal's point right now, you have let's say you know about one programming language. Git is not hard to learn. Git is actually quite easy to learn. I have a video on the channel, but you don't even need to go through that. You can just learn on the go. And then basic knowledge of the project. Now, like Kunal said, you don't need to know 100% of it, but you need to know some part of it. Because if you go there and you say, hey, can we do this? Then it needs to be backed by the facts of the project. So I think the best way to start is just go there, see the issues which are mentioned in the project. It will be a little confusing, like what is
Yeah, we
this?
can talk. We can talk more about that, like how to actually get started. So once you
Right.
have figured out what organization you have, what project you have, after that, what you need to do is, first of all, before even like doing the developer part, uh, clone it, fork it, clone it, try to set it up on your local system and try to use it. Because if you don't know what a project does, you will have really difficult time contributing to it. That makes sense. If you don't know what a project is doing, then how can you have a good time contributing to it if you don't know what
Yeah.
you're doing, what the project is? Set it up on a local system, use it like use it as a user, as a consumer, and see what it's doing, what the use case of the project is. So that was the first step. Second step is go look at the documentation. I mean, this is the documentation comes in the first part only. Now look into the more like the word I'm looking for is deep dive. So do a deep dive of the projects, like just go through all the like there might be like, this is a question I get quite a lot of times, that the project is really big. So how do we understand the entire code base? So you don't have to. These big projects are divided into modules and packages. Having a basic idea, basically the second point I want to make over here is see the flow of the code and the program, like how everything is working, how all the modules and everything are connected with each other. A tip I can give you over here is look at the test cases. So test cases is a really good way to start with how the entire thing is working behind the scenes. It has worked for me. Whenever I go through a test case of a new project, then I understand like how the things are working. So check out the test cases. And if you look at the documentation of the project over there, it will not be like, most of the time it will not be mentioned like how you can actually contribute and everything, like the nitty-gritty details or each and every file. No, it will not be
Mhm.
mentioned. That is the reason people have a hard time contributing to big projects. So over there, you can just look into the test cases, look at the each and every modules, just from the above. No need to let's dive deep into each and every single file. That is not beneficial. And the third point is, uh, again in the second point and the first point itself, join the mailing list. Why? Because mailing list is where all the people are hanging out. the maintainers and the people who created that project, who maintain that project. Because if you're working on a big project, you will have difficulty in understanding something at some point of time if you're a beginner. So where do you ask those doubts? You ask those doubts in the mailing list, in the public channel, and over there people will be helping you out in with any queries that you have. So now the third thing is actually how to get started with coding. So you can go to the issues tab and filter out good first issues. There are labels over there, and you can just pick up an issue that you like, and you can comment over there as well, like, hey, I'm a new beginner, can you suggest me how I can get started with this, or something like that. You can also comment like, hey, how do I reproduce this error? Or if you are not able to find an issue, you can comment in the public channel that, hey, I'm a beginner in this project, I have set it up on my local system and been using it for a while, really interested in contributing, can you suggest me some beginner friendly issues to work on? So that's how you get started. After that, you solve a few beginner friendly issues, small issues, and then the complexity of the issues grows, and now you are an active contributor. So that's how it goes. Yeah.
Wow, awesome. So it is a bit of a process. Yeah, it is a slightly long process, but then so are internships, right? And so is corporate programming, like learning new algorithms and stuff. So if you're contributing for this, go for the long run. Short term, I don't think anything will happen. It's also a strange game. If a project is mature and a project is respected, then it is going to be slightly, let's say, harder to find easy problems to solve in that, because the clear bugs are already
That
taken
is,
care
yeah,
of. Yeah.
that is not the case always,
Oh,
because
okay, yeah.
these big organizations are really looking forward to new contributors. For example, it totally depends on the organizations. For
Yeah.
example, contributing to Facebook open source project as a beginner, it's quite hard. uh,
Okay.
Facebook has so many rules and everything. Contributing to Cloud Native Computing Foundation, for example, welcoming community, most welcoming community in open source. Any beginner can contribute, even if you have no contributions in open source. That community is really welcoming. If you go right now and interact with that community during their webinars or everything, they'll be like, okay, yeah, more than happy to have you on board. They will send you some resources and everything to get started with it. And these are one of the biggest projects in the world, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation projects. Kubernetes itself is one of the largest projects. It's so big, like it's a really big project. So yeah, I mean, totally like depends on organization to organization. Most of these big organizations that are more focused on like the community aspect are also as well. Like KubeCon is a really big community event. They also have these diversity scholarships where people can go to their events, like for example students. So yeah, I mean, they are really welcoming. So you should not be feeling overwhelmed if you find a big project to contribute to, because these organizations are really welcoming.
That's awesome. That's really really heartening. I had this myth in my own head. It's good that you clarified it. That if it's a large organization, it's unlikely that they need too many changes or they're going to be easily onboarding new people. But that's wonderful to hear, and something that people can now go forward and try out. Awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
So, okay, you talked about how to find an organization to contribute to. Some resources, I think we can share the. By the way, what do you think about GSOC? Because most of the
Yeah,
people, when they think of open source, that's a synonym for them. I mean, GSOC is a
Google Summer
synonym.
School.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That is totally okay. Google Summer Code is a great program. I learned a lot from it. It helped me quite a lot in my journey. So I was a GSOC student in my freshman year, and then I was a mentor in my sophomore year. And the amount of experience I got and everything that I share with people is when I applied in my freshman year, I was like, I won't get selected, because I had this myth in my mind that GSOC is very competitive. Only pro level coders get selected and all these things. And I was like, I'm going to apply this time. I might not get selected, but I will still contribute, and then I'll apply next year. So the organization will be like, oh, this guy, this person applied last year. He did not get selected, but he still contributed. So we can select him this time. So I was like, if I won't get selected this year, I'll get selected next year. No worries. I applied, but I got selected. So that is the mindset you need to have. So you should contribute to open source irrespective of whether you get selected in these programs or not. Definitely, if you do get selected, that is great. But it's not about getting selected. It's about staying with the organization after the period is over. So it's not like you just do your GSOC and then you just go away from the
Mhm.
organization. That is not good. That is not the kind of people they're looking for. So that is the whole motivation you need to have before applying to Google Summer of Code, that your motivation is contributing to open source and being a part of that organization. Regarding that, it's a great resource. Like you talked about resources, so you can go to the GitHub Explore section. Over there you can find many open source projects regarding your tech stack, Java, JavaScript, C++, whatever you like. You can find the popular repositories over there. You can also use the Google Summer of Code website. So go to summerofcodewithgoogle.com, and over there there's an organizations tab. It will be uploaded once the organizations are selected. Over there also in the search bar you can type Java. It will list all the organizations related to Java, and it will list all the organizations. There are also filters and tags like security, web development, mobile, so on and so forth. So you can also filter out organizations with that. Now, picking an organization takes time because you have to go through so many and find the one that you like. So don't worry, take your time, take a week or two. Totally okay. I did a step-by-step video on this on my channel. So like Gaurav mentioned in the link, you can find something called open source playlist. So over there you can check that out. And over there there's a video of getting started with open source. So I have shared about this entire process over there. But two websites, GitHub and Google Summer Code website, really awesome to find projects.
Awesome. So, guys, all the people who wanted to know how to start, just head over to either of these sites, GSOC or GitHub Explore, and you can search according to the language that you are comfortable with. You can find an open source project. Like Kunal said, it's mainly dependent on the organization, but most of the community is very welcoming. Try it out. Ask people in the issues tab, make comments that, hey, I am a new guy, I'd like to contribute to this issue, I might want to fix this bug, or I want to add this feature, and apply in like multiple places, so that if it doesn't work out, it's okay.
In GSOC, every organization is beginner friendly. So any organization you pick in Google Summer of Code, they are looking for student contributors. You can apply to you can submit three project proposals. I would say you can do that definitely, but if you feel like you're not able to give your 100% in one organization, then it does not really make sense to look at three organizations, because quality matters more than quantity, right? So if you feel like you're able to give your 100% in an entirely one organization and you want to contribute to some other one as well, totally fine. But if you feel like you're not able to contribute to your good potential in just one single organization, and you're like contributing to, let's say, 5 at once, so that is not going to help you in the long run, because you can only submit 3 proposals, and that is totally fine.
No, you might be stretched too thin, but I thought that this is like when you make a comment, you're indirectly like putting an application forward. But if the community is super welcoming, then you don't need to worry, pretty much, right? Wow. Okay.
You don't need to worry. The thing is, like in GSOC, you have to submit a proposal, right? Now, most people, they don't know that proposal plays a very less role in GSOC. The most important thing in Google Summer of Code is how active the person has been before the application period began. So half of the work of selecting the person and everything, it's already done before the application period even opens. Because whom are they going to select? For example, there's one person who is contributing for the past 6 months. There's one person who just came one day before the application period was over. So whom are they going to select? Obviously, the person who is with the organization for a longer period of time, because they know that this person is not just here for Google Summer of Code, they are here for open source. So that was one more important tip. Proposal, everything is fine. Proposal is done. It's okay. Everyone can make proposal. It's not that big of a deal. Most important factor in selecting a Google Summer of Code student is how active they have been with the organization before the GSOC period. That is the reason you might have heard from your seniors and everyone that start early. But that does not mean that, it's too late right now. No, it does not mean like that. It's never too late. You can still start right now. But just contribute irrespective of whether you get selected or not is basically what I'm saying. But if you want to increase your chances, start early. And proposal is basically just an official thing. It's all dependent on how active you are in the organization. Proposal plays a very less role in that.
Okay, so this is not like the IIT JEE entrance test, which you need to start at.
No,
start preparing for a standard. Okay.
No. Okay. The proposal plays very less role. They already know which person is contributing to open source in their organization, whom are they going to select, who is really interested in the organization. They already know that before even the application period begins. It's just an official thing that is going on. and that is what I would recommend. Like, do your thing, contribute and learn, interact with people, and then apply. If you get selected, fine. If you don't, then still contribute. You can still mention it in your resume, and that's great.
So, Kunal, I have a small doubt. Okay, let's say I am a fresh college grad. I go to the open source proposal area, and before making the proposal, I should be talking to these companies about these open source projects already, or is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
So regarding that thing, so
Sorry, I
regarding the
didn't
proposal.
get the point clearly. I'm sorry for that.
That's fine. That's fine. So regarding a proposal, so let's see the GSOC timeline. Okay, what happens in Google Summer of Code? So the first thing that happens that is currently going on right now is organizations apply to Google. So one thing I want to point out over here is GSOC is not a internship by Google. Google Summer of Code is an open source program. You will not be working for Google. Google will not review your code. Google will not select your application. Google will not be in interaction with you. Everything that I just mentioned, you will be doing with the organization that you get selected in. Your mentors of the organizations are going to review your code. They are going to merge your PR. They are going to pass you or fail you. They are going to review your code and all these things. And they are going to even review your proposal. Google is just providing a platform. And regarding your question, for example, if someone is contributing to open source in the particular organization for quite some time, so you can go to the organization archive on Google Summer of Code and see what all organizations have been participating in Google Summer of Code for the past few years. So if they have been participating for the past few years, high chances are that they will still participate this year. So that is how you figure out which organization will be a part of GSOC without actually the announcement of the organizations. Sort of like a guess, but a really strong guess. Okay. So that was the first thing. Second thing regarding the proposal, like how do we reach out and all these things. If you're an active open source contributor in that organization, when the application period starts, you have to reach out to the maintainers of the project. There's this thing called the idea list. So if you go to the summer of code with google.com, select any organization over there, a link will open and that link will say view idea list, view projects. Click on the idea list. Okay, do this after the announcement has been done, or you can also reach out to the organization on the mailing list that, hey, do you have any idea list for Google Summer of Code, and they will share it with you. What is an idea list? Idea list is basically the projects that they are sending to be there in Google Summer of Code. And over that, you look at the idea list, you look at the project that you really like, you look at what they are required to do, then you create a proposal out of it. So in the proposal, you mention why you are a good fit for the project. So you don't have to write over there, I'm really motivational person, I code 15 hours a day. Don't write all these things. Keep it technical. Keep it technical. And if you have made previous contributions to that organization or any other organization, mention that. Then the second thing is the timeline that you need to put in the proposal. So you should put something like the first 2 weeks I will do this, second week I will do this, next week I will do this, so on and so forth. This gives a good understanding that, okay, this person already has a good proposal ready. Now the next thing is getting the proposal reviewed by the maintainers. So the same people who are going to be selecting and judging your proposal, you should get it reviewed by them only. So that is highly recommended. Do that. They will suggest you changes. Then you submit your proposal. But again, proposal plays a very little role. The most important role is how active you have been in the organization beforehand. It's just an official process, basically. So that is how the whole process of the proposal thing goes. Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. So what's happening now is that instead of relying on the interview process or applications which are hit and miss, they are looking for long-term commitments in various ways. Like, are you interested in contributing to this
Definitely. Yeah.
project? And then they basically dig through
Yeah.
your history pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why
Yeah.
you're saying starting early is a good
We
idea.
give like we give like scores. As I was a GSOC mentor with Red Hat, and over there, like we give scores to people, how active they were in the previous contributions, how many contributions they made before, also strength of the proposal, for example, engagement with the community. So all these past experiences matter quite a lot. Proposal is a small part of that.
Got it. All right, that's awesome. So, guys, I think a lot of the people, are a little confused sometimes. They think that GSOC is the only way. I'm sure this has helped clarify a lot of the things. Of course, you can always head to the playlist that Kunal has made, which we discussed. It's in the description. He's
In the playlist,
detailing
yeah.
it out. Yeah.
In the playlist, there's a first video which says 20 plus open source programs you can apply to. Just like Google Summer of Code, I've made a list of 20 programs you can apply to. So GSOC is not the only one. There are many other nice ones as well. So you can check that out.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, then. So finally, yeah, we have discussed student open source programs also in the GSOC and GitHub thing. Um, okay, let's. Do you think we should open up for questions, or would you like to detail out something about open source a little more?
Yeah, I
So
mean, I think we covered everything.
yeah,
Um,
45 minutes are done. I
it's
think
just
we have done really well on time also.
we covered everything. The only
Yeah,
thing like regarding the
you
open
covered
source
everything.
program,
I must
but
say, there's a lot of myths that I myself had in my mind about open source, uh,
yeah,
which have been
I
cleared.
mean, like, yeah. See, the thing is, to sum up this entire session, like, don't wait for these programs to start to contribute to open source. If you contribute to open source, if you're an active contributor, automatically your chances will be increased if to get selected in these programs. Second point, Google Summer Code is not the only one. It's like Outreachy, MLH Fellowship, LFX, so many other programs, by Fosatia and other organizations as well. So yeah, for that, please check out the video I made. It will definitely help you quite a lot because you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So whenever these open source organizations have their applications open, do apply and apply with the motivation of learning. If you don't get selected, that's fine. Apply again, but still contribute to open source. It will only make your profile stronger. You can find the links in the description.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. This is great. We have now found multiple ways to improve our profile. Paired programming can help you. Maybe, yeah, actually, it does help build your profile a little bit. But problem solving does help you become, according to me, it does help you become a better software engineer.
I agree.
And
I agree.
open source is definitely another way which I feel like either you work on open source or you work on projects, but do some software engineering. Just problem solving without the nitty gritties of how to build a project are not going to develop you holistically. And as an engineer, you need to be able to not just be like a scientist who does things, I mean, who learns things and then, mathematically knows that this is true or this is not true, but also implement it in the real world with real life problems. You have to solve for integer overflows and all that also. The computer architecture has to be taken into consideration at the end of the day.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
awesome. Guys,
One thing I wanna add onto it before we move on to the Q&A is learn in public. Learning in public is important. If you're from a tier 2, tier 3 college, having a personal brand and learning how to market yourself, if you're doing some amazing work, contributing to big open source projects, made a really amazing project, won some nice competition or anything, just put it out there on LinkedIn, Twitter. Second thing I want to mention over here is about networking with people, the importance of networking. If you want to network with people, you can't do that on LinkedIn. Okay, these people, developers and everyone in open source community, they are not hanging out on LinkedIn. Everyone is hanging out on Twitter. So be active on Twitter. Twitter is really great. Developer community over there is great. Once you get into open source, once you start attending events and stuff, take an example. Go to YouTube. I mean, you are on YouTube right now, but after the stream is over, just search for like KubeCon talks or Linux Foundation talks. No one is going to say connect with me on LinkedIn. Every speaker is going to say you can connect with me on Twitter. The Twitter community is really great. Another thing is it's really great platform to find opportunities and get referrals and network with people, build your connection, showcase the work you're doing. Please be active on Twitter. It will be really helpful to you because all the developers are hanging out over there, all the open source people are hanging out over there. And yeah, Twitter is great.
awesome. So yeah, actually, when I had gone for a few conferences, now that you're telling me, they're really active on Twitter and nowhere else. So I would tell them that this is my LinkedIn profile, and this is where I'm quite active. I post content, and then those guys are like, oh, I'm on Twitter. But awesome, awesome. I
around
think
Europe,
there's a lot of
around
good
Europe and
points.
stuff, people don't even use LinkedIn or stuff. Mostly people are like active on Twitter. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
after the stream is over, if you have any questions that might not get answered in this one, you can send me a DM on Twitter. I'll be more than happy to resolve your queries over there as well.
Kunal's Twitter link is also in the description, guys. Yeah, sure. I think Kunal will be more than happy to answer.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely. We can go to
so
Q&As now.
yeah, let's go for Q&As. What about who is working but want to upgrade? Can he take open source path? So, for example, if you're working in an organization already, Amit Kumar Singh is asking this. Is there, it doesn't make sense to contribute to open source or not so much?
Okay, so it totally like depends on the first of all the organization. I'm not sure what the limitations or anything that they might provide or not. I know a few people who are not able to contribute related to that. There are some amazing organizations that provide some separate time for the open source contributions. There's like the 80-20% rule at Google or Twitter, I believe, that you can do 80% work at the company, 20% you can do whatever you like. For Red Hat, for example, they are working on open source projects only all the time. So definitely you can do that, and it can really help you in if you want to upgrade yourself, if you want to network with people and go to get more opportunities. For example, regarding open source programs for people who are currently working professionals, yes, really amazing program called the Linux LFX. It was known as Community Bridge. It's by the Linux Foundation, and it's open to everyone, not just for students, even working professionals. The mentorship you get over there, the connections you make over there, and the level of projects you work over there, it's just outstanding. So please, you can definitely check that out. And to answer your question, yeah, you can definitely use open source to do the upgradation. Yep.
Okay, I'll just mention that in the banner, LFX stuff.
LFX, yep.
Yeah. Okay, and so in general, if this is my personal understanding, Kunal, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If you are working on projects which you like and you see that your growth in the company is doing really well, then, I mean, if you're growing in the company, then that's great. Then your software engineering skills are improving. If, however, you have some tasks which are very operations based or things that you're not feeling are helping you improve your coding skills, this is another avenue where you can invest your time
Yeah.
and then
Then you can upgrade. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Kaushik Joshi is asking, is 2 to 3 months of open source contributions by an intermediate level coder good enough to make a noticeable upgrade to your chances of getting placed? Yeah, overall, I'd say, yeah. But so Kaushik, one of the things is, before Kunal answers it, this is my general understanding of the thing. Try not to measure everything in terms of time. There's a lot to do with quality here. And intermediate level coder, like you might think you're an intermediate level coder, but for many people you might be a really good coder, and for many people you might be just starting off in your career. So I'm not sure if you can also add that much context, but in general, don't try to time it too much. Try to just head along in the path, and after a certain period of time you can maybe stop. Kunal, what do you think?
Yeah, again, don't put yourself like in a box like this, that I'm an intermediate coder. Even if you're like a beginner, like I said, the point I mentioned, basic to medium knowledge of your tech stack. So 2 to 3 months is a really long time, first of all. It can, if you're just starting out with open source, fine. Yeah, 2 to 3 months is great. So yeah, the thing is that once you start with open source, you will yourself see the growth that you will be making, both in terms of technical skills, soft skills, and your public profile. So like your GitHub profile and all the other things that you're doing. So yeah, regarding that, I think you can do it, but like Gaurav mentioned, you don't have to measure it in terms of timing, because quality is what matters. No one is going to look at how like for example, if you're a new beginner, so no one is going to be like, okay, this person has not been contributing to open source, we don't want them. No, you can do that, and 2 to 3 months is a really good time. I mean, the thing is, like, you should not measure yourself during this duration. Just keep contributing, keep applying to opportunities. If you get rejected, keep applying again, keep contributing, and then there will be one day when you will be like, okay, now things are falling into place.
Okay, now, okay, there's a question by Kapil. It's a easy one. I know HTML, JavaScript, etc. Can I contribute to open source? Yes. Ayush Chopra is asking, will it be better if someone new first start learning web development and then learn DSA and programming languages? You can go in any way. I'm going to give you a good question, Kunal. I'll just filter things out.
Sure.
Okay. So where to learn the level of C++ that is used in an organization, for example, LibreOffice. I think LibreOffice is open source. Asked by Chehen Das, where do you learn the level of C++ that is used in the organization? I think this is a different way of putting that. When do I reach the level of a pro coder sort of thing? I might be wrong here, but
Sure.
there is no level as such. So
No.
your level as a coder is not what defines an open source project. The level of the
Mm.
code is what defines the
Yeah.
level of the software engineering
Mm.
project. So your
Mm.
contribution will either be changed. They'll give you suggestions, and you can improve on that contribution till the
Mm.
point that you become habituated to making awesome contributions, so your level goes up. Okay, they
Mm.
are not going to be like, this guy is not Shah Rukh Khan, we'll not let him act. They are going to actually improve on your acting, keep taking retakes till you reach that level. Kunal,
Mm.
you can, I mean, do you think that
Don't,
is
yeah, definitely don't measure yourself like this. I don't know how people, when I look at like people in their resume, they put JavaScript 80%, C++ 40%. So on what on what basis are you measuring that? That's something that I don't understand. But yeah, you should not measure yourself like this. The thing is, like I mentioned, if you're a basic, if you're let's say intermediate to basic level at C++, I'm assuming like data structures, algorithms, and things like that. Start with basic, like good first issues. After you have solved of quite a few of those, start jumping onto intermediate issues and a little bit new issues. So helping out in a new feature, writing some test cases for them, just working on some moderate difficulty issues. That is the way to measure yourself, not how many topics I know, how many things I know. No, that is not the correct way. If you're working on some nice project using like caching, like distributed system and all these things, does not matter how many tutorials you watch, how many things you know. As long as you are not getting the satisfaction of applying that somewhere, you will not get the confidence that okay, I am really good at this. So even if I'm talking about Golang, am I an expert in Golang? No, I am not. If I'm talking about Java, am I an expert in Java? No, I'm not. But I have made significant amount of contributions in Java in some big open source projects. I've added like nice features, started from like literally improving the grammar, and then I adding test cases. By grammar, I mean improving the grammar of the README file. So that was the basic contribution you can make. Yeah, literally, that is a valid contribution
sorry.
as a
I'm
big.
sorry. I like I said, I have a lot of myths in my head about
That is
the
fine.
value
That
of
is fine.
contributions.
But
Yeah.
the thing is, like, even though solving the README and improving the documentation is a good practice for a beginner, that does not mean that you are doing that for the past 1 year. Like, fine.
Yeah.
Like,
No, then you're not
yeah,
developing
that is
yourself.
the, yeah. So 1 year has passed, and I'm like, okay, what have you done? I have, मैंने तो ना, मतलब, I have improved the README file of 1,000 open source contributions. So that is not good. Like, it's a good place to start, but at least at some point of time, get out of your comfort zone. Start with good first issues, then start with some new open source like issues and stuff, and level up like that. So even though I can't say I'm not saying I'm a Java expert or something, Java champion. Java champion is a thing. It's a community of Java developers. So I'm not saying I'm like that level of coder, but I can say that I have done significant amount of contributions in Java, and that is all that matters. That is how you measure yourself.
Awesome. I think that's a very important point. Thanks for putting it forward, Kunal. I'll just talk about a little bit about that 80%, 20% thing after a while. We have a channel member, Anunyay Sharma. Hey, Anunyay, do you need to learn all the technologies mentioned in the project before contributing, like Mozilla Foundation? I think Kunal touched on it a little bit.
Nope.
No, you don't. You need to know what is relevant to the change that you are making and maybe a little bit around it. But along the way, there will be people
Along
who will be helping you in the. Yeah, sorry, Kunal, you can take it forward.
I was just saying, yeah, along the way, just have an open mind. If you don't know something, just have an open mind to learn it. That is the most important thing, because your question was, do I need to know everything before getting started? Then no. Only a few amount of thing is fine. Just having an open mind that, okay, if I am given an opportunity to work on something I don't know about, I will do that while I'm contributing.
Okay. Kinjal Chatterjee saying, can you list some repos where beginners can contribute to? Well, I think I had. Yeah, here's the ticker. You can just head there. The GSOC website is good. There is, if you're working already, there is LFS, which is the Linux Foundation
LFXX.
X. Is it okay? I
Yeah.
searched for LFS on Google. Linux from scratch. It's a book by Gerard Jenkins.
It's LFX. LFX is a uh, program by Linux Foundation.
Okay.
But I want to That's a good question. Like most people ask this, that can you suggest a beginner friendly organization, right? So I would say open source is much more about coding. Okay. It's about the community as well. That is something that you might not get in a smaller project. Even though you will be able to, let's say, contribute, but you will not be able to, let's say, make a significant amount of contribution. What you can get out of smaller open source projects is how to learn Git and GitHub, first thing. Second thing is helping that particular smaller community, right? So if you're using their project and you want to help them, definitely more than welcome to do that. From a student's point of view, if you really want to get into the open source spirit of a larger part, be a part of a bigger organization, as a beginner you can do that. If you already know these things and if you're just looking to contribute to open source projects, in that particular case, I would not suggest going for beginner friendly projects. Directly jump onto the complex ones. Why? Because they are beginner friendly. There is something for beginners always there, and over there you're going to get to learn so much as compared to some project you know already everything about, so get out of your comfort zone. Because I mentioned even these big organizations like CNCF, Kubernetes community, and all these big projects, they are really beginner friendly also. So you should not be, like, I will only contribute to beginner friendly projects. No, you can directly choose these big projects, start small, give it time, and then make your way towards those contributions.
Awesome. Okay, guys, I think there's a lot of questions also. I mean, there's a lot of other questions also. Many of them are interesting questions, but they are in a little more detail, like give us examples specifically for C++, JavaScript. Kunal has already made an entire playlist on open source, which is on his channel. You guys can head over there. It's in the description. And, of course, you can put comments on this video if you have any doubts remaining. We'll be looking and answering at those comments. Thanks everyone for tuning in for this very interesting discussion we had with Kunal on how do we contribute to an open source project. Thank you, Kunal, for coming. And
Yeah,
think, yeah, it's a good day.
yeah, it is a good day.
Good way to
I
start
am
the weekend, I think. Yeah.
I am seeing most of the questions, and I get it. These are the questions that are most popularly asked. So yeah, please check out the open source playlist I made. It's really important for someone who is starting with open source, because I have mentioned everything over there. There's so many podcasts over there, and screen sharing sessions and everything I have explained over there. So feel free to check it out, and do reach out and also comment or down on this video if you have any questions. And yeah, you can always reach out to me as well. I'll be happy to help you. But thanks a lot for having me, Gaurav. This was great. And I hope that via your channel, open source spirit, the original, why people should even care and contribute, irrespective of the programs, that it will spread to more and more people. And yeah, I really appreciate you having me on the channel. Yeah.
Yeah, just before we sign off, guys, I want to make this another thing, an announcement. Unfortunately, I was not able to do this earlier. There is something called FOSS, FOSS, and they had contacted me saying that they would like to promote their open source thing. I don't know this very well, but basically, it's headed by people in organizations like Zerodha, and they have built some tools which are very useful, CRM tools, and various other things. So you can check that also out. The reason why this video is out there is because I know there's a lot of potential that we have in the developer community, and we can leverage that. There's a lot of motivation on the supply side and a lot of need on the demand side. If we can bridge that gap, if open source is the way to go, then let's do it. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks, Kunal, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Okay, Kunal, I think the stream has ended.